A theme is a set of formatting options, including colors, fonts, and effects that you can apply to the entire body of your message in a single click. Why would you want to use a theme? For example, if you have shapes and objects that have contrasting colors and you want to use something that's similar, that's complementary, or in my case, I've got a single color and I want to find two or more colors that I can apply to my smart art here, nothing that's too different that it's jarring, but again, something that's complementary, then we can see what themes has to offer. Also, it's for fonts and effects. So to find out what's available, then come up here and click on the Options tab, go to the Themes group, and there's the themes. Now remember, themes are made up of these elements, colors, fonts, and effects, and also page color, which we'll cover in just a minute. So when I click on the drop-down arrow, you can see, well, there's only a few themes, but that's okay because you can change any element that makes up that theme. Like if you don't like the colors, you can change that, the fonts, or the effects. So first off is the Office theme, and the uppercase A and lowercase a are represented by the fonts, and then the color palette is the colors, and then the page color, well, that's the background color there, and there won't be any representation here, at least in the image for the effects. So the uppercase A is for the headings that you have in the body of your message, or the text that you apply to heading style to. So that's going to be the font type, what you see here, and the size, it's not to scale. It's just that your headings are going to be, typically headings and documents are larger, bigger, and bolder. And so it's going to be larger than the lowercase a, which is the body of the message, or the rest of the message that doesn't have any heading styles applied to it. Now, if you don't know anything about heading styles, you can watch my word training video on heading styles. In fact, a lot of the things that you can do here in the body of the message when it comes to setting up tab stops, themes, indents, aligning paragraphs, it's all from Microsoft Word. So instead of recreating the exact same videos that I have in Word, I recommend that you go ahead and watch my word training videos, and in this case, more specifically, on heading styles. So when I choose one, like here, Gallery, you can see that it updates the color, just a single color for my smart art down below, the organization chart, and also it updates the fonts. So when I click on it, you can right-click anywhere in the text, and in the mini formatting toolbar, there's the theme font that's been applied to it, Gill Sans MT. So when I come back up here and click on the drop-down arrow and choose Facet, and I right-click in the middle of the text, now it's Trebuchet MS, the other theme font. Now after I choose one of these, and again there's not many here, and I'm like, okay, I like all the elements except maybe the color. I'd like to change the color or have colors more than just green here. Well, we can go ahead and change this theme, Facet, the color, to a different color, but when I do that, it'll no longer be Facet, and that's okay because when we're done, we can always save it as another theme, so you don't have to do this all over again. In any case, when you click on the colors drop-down arrow, you can choose different colors. Now, I'm only getting monocolor because I only have a single color, that is, applied to my smart art. So if I go ahead and select the smart art, come up here, click on the Design tab, and change the colors, something that's not a single color, but multiple colors here. Let's do the colorful range accent colors 4 to 5. Select that. So when I come back, well, let's do something else. Smart Art Styles, click on the More button. Let's do an effect here, a polished one. Oh, that looks polished. Select that. So when I come back up here to the options, and I'm working with themes, and let's go ahead and choose the colors. Then when I hover over it, it updates it accordingly. So instead of having a single color, it says, okay, now that you have multiple colors to work with, we have multiple colors to apply to your smart art. So I got the light green for my shape as president, or let's try to find something. Let's do that. That's fancy. Yellow, orange. Go ahead and select that. Great. And then if I'm like, okay, I really don't like the fonts, then come up here and change the fonts. Click on the drop-down arrow, and you get a thumbnail preview, a graphic visual of the fonts. So the uppercase A, again, the same thing as when you click on the themes drop-down arrow, represents the text that has any heading styles applied to it. And then the lowercase a is the body of the message. And then over here is the name of the font here. And then for the uppercase A, it's Arial. And the lowercase a is also Arial. And so the only difference here when I choose this is that the heading style is going to be a larger font size. So if you want to go ahead and scroll through here, you can of course hover over it. It gives you a preview of it. So for the heading style, Arial, and then the body of the message, Times New Roman, select it. So when I right click on it, Times New Roman. Great. Now, if you want to be able to tweak that because you don't like what's available, for the colors and fonts, you can click on the drop-down arrow and customize the colors. click off, click on the drop down arrow for fonts, customize the fonts. And for the effects, you can't do that. So you can hover over and just go with what's there, something glossy. And for the page color, now when you hovered over themes, you saw the background page color here, right? And also for the colors, there's a page color that's in the color palette that's complementary to the rest of the colors there that you won't see unless you apply a page color first. So when I click on the drop down arrow, choose a color. Oh, okay, I'll go with that. Brown accent 2, lighter 40%. Select it. So now when I click on the colors and I choose something else, it'll actually update the page color as well with the complementary color. So you can kind of mess with that and find out what's your flavor. And I don't know if I'm going to find, well, okay, maybe that's just as good. We'll leave it as such and let go and click off. Or you can just go ahead and click page color and say, you know what, no color. I'm good as is. And if you like what you see and you don't want to have to recreate this whole thing over again for future applications, then come up here, click on Themes, go down to Save Current Theme. Puts us in the Document Themes folder, so we just need to go ahead and retype the file name, unless you want to keep it Theme1. Type Spiffy, because hey, everything we do here at Dreamforce is spiffy. And then go ahead and click Save, and it's available for future applications. When I open up a new email message, or when I come up here and click on Themes, it's available in this message as well. And you can see it's highlighted, unless I choose something else and select that and go with that. And then if you want to delete your themes and learn more about themes customizations, again, you can go ahead and watch my word training video on themes. I go to it in greater detail than what you see here. This is something to simply get you started or thinking about if it's something that you want to apply in your email messages. With Microsoft Word being the foundation of the body of the message, a lot of the things you can do in Microsoft Word, you can do in the body of the message here. So I recommend that you want to probably consider that as your companion training when it comes to, well, your email messages here when working in the body of the message. One last thing that I do cover in my themes training video in Microsoft Word that I'll give you a quick heads up because I don't want to take too much more time here, is that when you do choose a theme and it's not updating the font here, it's because the font is not a theme font. And so when I double click and I select the text here and I click on the drop down arrow, you see where it says theme fonts for your headings and for the body. Now body is what we have selected here. So there's Calibri with body. When I scroll down to the C's to find Calibri again, it's right there, but it doesn't have body next to it, so it's not a theme font. So you can actually choose the same font, but it's not a theme font. And when I choose that, and it's not part of the theme, it's Calibri, as when I come over here, and well, right click, it's Calibri, but that has body. So when I change my themes and I choose something else with a different type of font, or let's just do fonts here, choose something else, everything gets updated except this right here because it's no longer a theme font. So long story short, to keep it really simple, go ahead and watch my training video because I go to it in greater detail. But if you mess with your fonts and you don't go with the theme fonts, you can't update everything at once because this one is not like the other. So it stays as Calibri, where let me double click to select that text. You can see in the mini formatting toolbar, it didn't get update with all the other text as a theme font, Franklin Gothic. When you click on the drop down arrow, it's got body, and so it's a theme font here. So keep that in mind if you got a frustration with this. I go to it in greater detail, something that there is definitely a solution for, and that's in my Microsoft Word training video on themes. To reply to an email message, like let's take this one that I have selected, and over here in the reading pane, well, there's a picture of Carrie that I have tied to her email address. That's in my contacts folder, and we'll talk about the contacts in a later training video. So anytime I get an email from her, it includes her picture. Then the subject is snowmobiling, and then the body of the message. She wrote, "Hi Kurt, are you and Mr. Humphreys and your families available to join our family for snowmobiling this weekend? Carrie." And to find out if she included Mr. Humphreys or who did she actually include in this message, you come up here and you got the two dudes there with the number next to it. That number is the total number of email addresses that she included in this message. So click on it. There's mine that she put in the to field, and in the carbon copy, Mr. Humphreys. And the reason why she put Mr. Humphreys in the carbon copy is because he does not like snow. But she's still generous enough to invite him anyways to make him feel included. In any case, let me go ahead and click off. And then there's the time that she sent the email off. If you want more details, click on the More button, and the only additional detail you get next to the time is the date. So there's a lot of extras there, as it were. And you've got the email address, the subject, the to and carbon copy fields in tinier font. I'm going to go ahead and collapse that so I can get more room down below. And then there's many ways you can reply to an email message. One way is over here in the reading pane. You can just come up here and click on reply. When you click on it, it's going to create a new email message and include the email address because we want to send it back to Carrie as a reply, so that way I don't have to type in her email address again. Then it's going to include the subject, so we know what it's regarding, and a copy of the original message. Because when it comes to replying, it's nice to know that when I get a reply from you, that I know what it's about. Because if there's no subject, body of the message, and you just reply yes, I'm like, yes to what? I get a lot of emails. In any case, click on reply. There you go, new email message. There's the email address back to Carrie, and RE for regarding snowmobiling, a copy of the subject, and then the contents of the original message. And so all I have to do is go ahead and type in yes. And it's happened where I sent off an email and I got a reply back where they said yes, but they, for some reason, deleted the subject and the original message. And I'm like, yes to what? Can you please be a little bit more specific? You can go ahead and click on send and away it goes. Or you got these other two options in the reading pane. You can discard it when you do that. Puts it over here in the deleted items folder and it's right there. Let's go back to the inbox and come up here. And when I click on reply, it's just going to reply to Carrie, not everybody else that was included in the email message. Well, I say everybody, but it was only Mr. Humphreys who was included. So if I want to go ahead and discard that, and reply to not only her, but everybody else, well, include Mr. Humphreys, the one person, click on reply to all. Now, I've done this before where I just wanted to reply to the original sender and not to everybody else, include their email messages in it. And I would type in something like, oh, these guys that you're inviting are such stinkers. And I hit send. So everybody gets this email message that wasn't intended for them because I meant to hit reply, but because I was in such a hurry, I hit reply all, which is really close to the reply button. And everybody gets this and they're like, hey, we're not stinkers. So keep an eye on that. But in any case, if I want to include Mr. Humphreys, hit reply to all, and then type in your message. Yes, we're going, and then go ahead and click send. But the other thing that I want to cover is the pop out. When you click on pop out, it takes the window here and it pops it out full screen. Wow, that's huge. So you get more room, horizontally that is, and you can do whatever you need to do here. When you're done, go ahead and click send, and away it goes. I'm going to go ahead and close out of it and not save it. So you can do it all from the reading pane, or you can come over here, double click and open up the message and click on reply or reply to all, or close out. You can right click on the message, reply, reply to all, or with it selected, up here on the home tab in the respond group, you can click on reply or reply to all. And if you hover over them, they'll give you the shortcut keys, Control-Shift-R. Ooh, that's a lot of fingers. And then as a side note, when you get an email message that has an attachment or attachments, like the paperclip here, that lets you know that there's an attachment of one or more. And when I select it over here in the reading pane, you got 5 paperclips or 5 items that are attached here. That when you hit reply, it doesn't copy over the attachments. Click reply, they're gone. No attachments here. So keep that in mind. Let me go ahead and discard that. And then finally, let me go ahead and talk about this other feature that's called Preface Comments with. So with it selected, when I click on reply over here, there are times when I get an email from somebody that has a lot of questions, like 10, 20, and instead of typing up all the answers up at the top, because without being able to tie the answers to the questions, like yes, no, it could be yes for anything, and I don't want to retype in their questions to say yes for snowmobiling, yes for sleigh riding, no to having donuts. What a lot of people have done is they would say, please see my responses below. And then they go down into the body of the message and type in the responses, usually with a different color font. So they come up here and make it red and they type in the response there. The Preface Comments with feature will actually put in your name in brackets when you start typing, and then after your name will be your comments. Well, let me show you. So let's go ahead and discard that and come up here, click on the File tab, go backstage down to Options, select the Mail tab, and there's 2 ways you can turn this feature on. You can, let me scroll down here to the replies and forwards, and there it is. Check Preface Comments with, and it will usually have an email address. You can delete that and type in your initials or your full name, and then click OK. But before I do that, I want to come back up here to Stationery and Fonts, click on it, and you see where it says Mark My Comments With. It's not checked. Well, when you do it, what we did here, we checked it in that screen. It'll check that after I click OK. Or if I come in here and check that and click OK, it'll check it in the other screen. Well, let me show you. So it's not checked. Click Cancel, click OK. When I go backstage, File, Options, Mail. We know it's checked down below, right? Because we just did it. Preface Comments. But it's like when you check one, it checks the other. So when I go to Stationery and Fonts, it's now checked. Or if I came in here and checked it and clicked OK, it would be checked back down here. So there's more than one way to do this. In any case, let's go ahead and click OK. So when I come over here and I click on Reply, and I say, please see my responses. And when I come down below and I hit the space bar, automatically inserts or preface my comments with my initials in the square brackets, and I can say yes. And then if I'm like, I don't want that too close, I can click before it, hit enter, but then it adds the preface again, my initials. So you want to be careful. It's a loaded gun. In any case, go to the next question, hit enter, adds the initials, and say no, or whatever comment you need to type in next to each question that they asked. And this can be helpful because if she wants to forward this on to somebody else or include somebody else in it, then she can say, well, this is KK's reply or response to my questions here. And then, of course, the other people can go ahead and turn on their Preface Comments with feature and add their comments down below. So when all is said and done and everybody hands it around, you'll have my initials with my response, and then whoever gets this email next will have their initials with their response, and so on. For me, the blue doesn't really work. I like to turn it to red because that really pops, but in any case, whatever works best for you. And then, of course, to go ahead and turn it off, I'm going to discard this. Just go back the way we came. File, Options, Mail. And then, well, this time we can just go to Stationery and Fonts and uncheck it. Click Okie dokie, click OK, and now it won't have that Preface Comments with feature turned on when I reply to the message, well, in the body of the original message with my comments. One final note that after you reply to the email message and that original email message that, well, in this case, Carrie sent to me is still in the inbox, and you're like, oh, did I reply to it? I need to let her know that we are excited to go snowmobiling so she can include us in the plans. You can just go ahead and look at that little icon in the indicator column that has the envelope with the arrow pointing to the left. You'll see the same one up here on the Home tab in the Respond group, and it's right there. Same icon, that means that you replied. And if you want more details about when you replied, with it selected, just come over here in the reading pane, and there you go. The information bar says you replied to this message on that date and at that time. Or you can double click to open it up. The information bar is there as well. Or if it's no longer in the inbox, remember everything you send off, a copy of it is stored over in the Sent Items folder. Select it, and there's regarding snowmobiling. Double click on it, and there you go. The reply that has my response, yes, we're available and excited to go, and who received it. So I replied to everybody. That included the original sender, Carrie, and Mr. Humphreys. And of course, you can click on the little drop-down arrow and who it's to, Carrie, and Mr. Humphreys was CC'd or carbon copied into it. And of course, don't forget your expandable button here that you can expand that and actually get everything without having to click on the little drop-down arrow to be able to view it. That way it's up permanently, unless of course you want to go ahead and collapse it and then it hides it until you're ready to go ahead and expand it again. Forwarding an email message is just like it sounds. It's taking a previous email that was sent to you and sending it off or forwarding it on to somebody else. So for example, I got a new email here from Carrie. With it selected, I can come over here in the reading pane, get a preview of it. There's the subject, New Ghost Investigation, and she wrote, "Hi Kurt, we got an opportunity to investigate the haunted old mill this Friday night at 6 p.m. Ooh, spooky. And so you can see up here that she only sent it to one person. That would be me. And let's say that I want to be able to invite Mr. Humphreys. Well, I could go ahead and create an entirely new email message and then copy and paste the contents of this over into it or retype it, which is a waste, especially if I can just come up here and click on forward. And when I do that, it copies over the subject and the body of the original message here. So click on forward. There's the subject, and it's got FW in front of it to let Mr. Humphrey knows that this isn't the original message, but it's been forwarded on from, you can see down below, Carrie Heffernan, and when she sent it to me, and the subject, and then what she wrote me. And so I can just come up here and type in his email address, and W, there it is, with it highlighted, hit the tab key, and then down below, "Hey, Mr. Humphreys, are you free?" And when he sees that, well, if this wasn't a dead giveaway that there's more to the message than what I wrote because it's been forwarded on, then when he sees it down below after he opens it up because maybe he missed the FW, he can go, oh, well, there's more down, and it's from Carrie, and she wrote to Kurt about the ghost investigation this Friday night. Are you free? Oh, of course. Now, you can do it that way, but you can also, if you want to make this an original message, as it were, you can actually come up here and delete the FW and delete who it's from originally here, and then type over the names like Hi Kurt and say Hi Mr. Humphreys, and then replace the Sincerely Carrie with Sincerely Kurt, and plagiarize, make it your own. But hey, Outlook is only used for good. So let's go ahead and hit undo, but you can do that if it helps you out to speed things up, because maybe you don't want them to know who the original sender was, and it was going to be a surprise party in any case. When you're ready, just go ahead and click on send, and away it goes. Now, as you recall in the previous training video on replying in the reading pane, you can discard it. If you do that, it moves it over to the deleted items folder, select it, and there it is. You can double click to open it back up, and it's got the message here that we typed in originally before we threw it away. Then we can go ahead and click send, and away it goes. Or let's go ahead and close out, go back to the inbox, and then go ahead and click on forward again. And then the other option is to do a pop out, and it gives you more room horizontally if you need more room. And then type in who it's to, well, Mr. Humphreys, and then your message, hey, we want you to come. And go ahead and close out of that. Let's not save that. Now you can do it over in the reading pane, but like we covered in the previous training video when it came to replies, you can also do it over here by either right-clicking on the message itself, and in the shortcut menu, select forward, opens it up over in the reading pane, in which case you can pop it out or discard it. I'll discard it. You can do it that way, or you can come up here on the Home tab to the Respond group, and there it is as well. Click on forward, or double-click to open up the message itself and click on forward there. And then go ahead and type in everything. And hit the tab key, and then say, and then when you're done, click send. And after you click send, in the original message, it shows that I forwarded this message on at that date and that time. And let me go ahead and close out of that so we can come back here so I can show you that the icon column, when you hover over that piece of paper, in that column, you got these letters here. As you recall in the previous training video, the letter with the arrow pointing to the left as a reference, you can come up here on the Home tab to the Respond group. The arrow pointing to the left means that you replied. And in this case, pointing to the right, the blue, means that you forwarded it on. So if I'm like, ooh, did I forward this on to Mr. Humphreys? Well, yes, you can see the indicator there with the message still in the inbox. And with it selected, you can come over here and it gives you the date and time. You forwarded this message on this date and that time. And of course, you got the more arrow. You can click on it to get more information here. I'm going to collapse that. If you're like, well, who did I forward it on to? Remember, every time you send off an email message, whether it's an original message, a message that you replied to, or in this case forwarded it creates a copy of it and stores it over in the Sent Items folder so you can select it. And then there it is. FW forwarded, new ghost investigation, and who it's to, Mr. Humphreys. But if it's being cut off, you can double click, or if there's additional email addresses, because you can include more than one email address in a forward, that it would list them all here. And of course, you can expand that to get the details and collapse that to give you more room. Let's go ahead and close out of that and go back to our inbox. Now, as I discussed in the previous training video, that when you get messages that have attachments, let's do this one right here. You can see the paper clips. When I look over here in the reading pane, yay, we've got 5 attachments here. That when you click reply, it removes the attachments, because when I reply back to Carrie, what's the purpose of sending back something that she already has? Unless, of course, I want to go ahead and make some changes before I send them off, but the reply option isn't going to work. If you want to keep all this and send it back to her, I think the quickest way to do that, or in this case, to forward it on to somebody else, is to do the forward, because the forward keeps all the attachments. When you click forward, there's all the attachments, the original email message. Go ahead and type in who it's to. In any case, discard that. And when you click reply, remember, it removes all the attachments. Let's discard that. Also, you can use the Preface Comments with feature as we covered in the previous training video. In other words, when I select this and I click on Forward, if there's a lot of information that I want to go to in greater detail and not type it all up at the top, but in reference to maybe all the statements or questions that Carrie sent to me, because again, I don't want to do more work than is necessary, I can, when I send this off to Mr. Humphreys, type in something that says, please see my comments below. And so down below, I can go ahead and type in my comments next to all the questions or statements that Carrie made, and I can preface those comments with my name. And this can be done by using the Preface Comments with feature. And to do that, let's discard that. As you recall in the previous training video, come up here, click on the File tab, go down to Options, and then select the Mail tab. And you can either come over here and click on Stationery and Fonts, and then go ahead and check Mark My Comments with KK. When you check that and you click OK, you can also scroll down here to Replies and Forwards and check Preface Comments with KK. But since I already checked it in the other window before I came to this one, well, when I click OK and I come back, this will be checked. Because when you do it in one place, it updates the other. So if I go ahead and click OK, then I come back and I go File, down to Options, select Mail. Remember I checked it in Stationery and Fonts. You see it's right there, Mark My Comments with KK, which you can come in here. And instead of using your initials, as I'm doing in my case, I can type in Kurt and click OK. But when you scroll back down to here, Replies and Forwards, it checks the Preface Comments with, well, it's KK, but since I updated it in the other window, it'll update it here. That is after I click OK. Click OK. So when I go ahead and click on Forward, and I come up here and I say, please see my comments below. Once I get below the line here of the original email message, or this could be a forward of a forward of a forward, in any case, once I get below the line and I go next to like one of the statements or the questions and I start typing, saying yes, that'll automatically preface my comments with, in square brackets, my name. Or you can go back and change it to your initials, and this will happen wherever you click. And even when you hit the Enter key, it automatically inserts my name again, and I can just start typing. That way I'm able to easily address each statement or question, if there's more than one here, that is, in the original message, with my comments, and not have to come up here and then type in, well, for this question I want to reply here and retype the question. Now it's a lot easier, at least for me, to go ahead and just say, please see my comments or responses below, and then it starts it off with my name. And that can be very helpful because when I send it on to Mr. Humphreys and then he turns his on, the Preface Comments with feature, and he tags it with his comments below mine, well, if he forwards it on to somebody else, then they do that and it gets back to Carrie. She can go ahead and look at all the comments to see who made them. And it would be Kurt and then Mr. Humphreys, if he wants to use his initials, WF, whatever his flavor is. In any case, when you're done, you don't want to use this feature anymore. Well, let's just discard that. Of course, you can come back up here, click on File, go down to Options, click on the Mail tab. Again, Stationery and Fonts, and uncheck it there, or just scroll down and uncheck it here. And then click OK, because what you do in one, it does in the other. Again, File, down to Options, Mail. Whew, that's a lot of work. Stationery and Fonts, and then there you can see it's been unchecked here as well. So, OK. And then when I go ahead and click on Forward, and I just come down below the line and start typing, it doesn't preface my comments with my name. There are a couple ways you can print off your email messages. One way is to right-click on it, and in the shortcut menu, go to Quick Print. You don't get any options, it just goes straight to your printer. But if you want some options, then, well, you can double-click to open up the message, and then come up here and click on the File tab and go backstage down to Print. Get a preview of it, or let me close out. You don't have to open up the message, you can just have it selected and then come up here, click on the File tab, go backstage down to Print, and there's a preview of it, the message that I have selected. Over in the preview window, you can click on it to zoom in and scroll over so you can get the actual size. Click on it to zoom out, or You can come down here and click on the actual size, and that's what it's going to look like when it comes out of your printer. Or you can go ahead and go to view the one page, single page, or if you have more than one page, maybe you've got a lot of text and it goes over to 2 or 3 pages in the email message, you can go ahead and click on multiple pages and it will pull them up, well, a separate preview, a smaller one for each page, so it can fit it all within the window here. And if you have more than one page, you can click on the next page button or click in the box and then type in a number like 3 if you want to go to page 3 and hit enter, and it'll automatically take you to page 3. You can do that, or you can come over here and click on print options, and down below you can print all the pages in the email. Or let's say that we had 10 pages and we just wanted to print pages 1, 3, 6 through 8. As you can see down below, it gives you an example. So in this case, when I click on print, it's going to print pages 1, skip 2, page 3, skip 4 through 5, and then print pages 6 through 8. You can also print attached files. Attachments will print to the default printer only. In any case, go ahead and check that if you want the attachments printed. And then the number of copies if you want more than one copy. And you also have different styles here. You've got the memo style. You can also look at the table style, select it, and then down below you can print all rows or only selected rows. And so that means, well, all the email messages in my inbox is going to include all of them, but just in a row format and not the actual contents of the message. Well, let me show you. With table style selected, I can click on preview, and then I can click on it to zoom in, and that's my inbox. So there you go. It's got all the email messages that are sitting in my inbox, all of them. So if I go ahead and go back to print options, and with the table style, I say only the selected row, that's just going to be the first email message in my inbox that I have selected. Unless I go back to the inbox and I select the first email message, hold down the control key and select the second and select the third. Well, let me show you. Let's go ahead and click on preview first so you can see that I just have one selected. Then click back, go ahead and hold down the control key and select. Now you can see I've got 2, and then let go of the control key, and then go ahead and click on file, go down to print. And because multiple items are selected, well, you have to click on preview if you want to be able to see them. And there's the first item, go to the second item, the second email message, and then go ahead and go to print options. So we can go ahead and go to table style and then go down to only selected rows. And so when I click on preview, remember I selected the first and the third one, I recall, and there they are, those 2. Great. And then we can go ahead and go back to memo style or go back to print options and work with additional options like the page setup. If you want to be able to work with the column headings, what type of font that they're in, the paper, if you want to choose a different type of paper, your margins, and header and footer, if you want to include in the heading of every single page that's printed off some text, go ahead and type it in there. And I cover this in my Microsoft Word training video when it comes to working with your headers and footers and also with your margins. So you can go ahead and watch that to get a little bit more detailed when it comes to printing off your documents, because it is a document, but it's just going to be in email message format, either as a table style or the complete email itself. So when you select it, click on preview. And because it's multiple items, you have to click on preview again. And so instead of printing off row by row as we see it in the inbox, it'll actually take those 2 that I have selected and print them off in memo style or the complete email message, which is who it was sent from, the 2, the body of the message, and then the other one that I selected, which, let me hit the back arrow, wasn't number 3, it was number 4. So those 2 I can print off because I have them selected, and I chose that in my print options to be able to print those 2 selected emails. All deleted items, including messages, are moved to the deleted items folder here until you manually go in and delete them permanently. And before we do that, notice how you got a number next to the folder. Anytime you see a number next to a folder, it means that there are items within that folder that have not been read. So when I go ahead and select it, you can see I've got a lot more items within the folder than 6, but of the items, 6 of them that are in bold have not been read or addressed. So if I go ahead and double click to open it up and I read it, and I close back out, it's no longer marked as read, and so I go from 6 items being unread down to 5. You can also right-click on it and say that you did read it or mark it as being read, in which case I go from 5 down to 4, or you can go ahead and right-click on it and mark it as being unread, puts it back in bold, and we're back up to 5. Why would you want to do that? Well, sometimes, like in my inbox, let's go there, and I need to address this. I can right-click on it and mark it as unread, and it puts it back in bold. And you can see in the inbox, 1, meaning one of all the items in here, even if it's the only item, has not been read. So that way, when I want to go ahead and read it and go, oh, that's nice, okay, ooh, I better get back to this, so I better touch it or tag it as not being read yet, as a flag to me that I need to address that email, even though I just read it. Now, when it comes to deleting an item, like an email message here, you can do it one of many ways. You can either right-click on it and go down to delete, or let me click off. You got the X over there to delete it, or you can come up here on the Home tab to the delete group and delete it, or you can just hit the delete key on the keyboard. And when you do that, it moves it over to the deleted items folder. Now, while I'm still in the inbox, I can come up here and hit the undo, and it brings it back. But after I delete it, when I leave the inbox and I go to the deleted items folder, that undo arrow is no longer active. I can no longer undo what I just deleted. And it was this message right here. So to bring it back to the inbox, I can just click and drag it and put it over here in the navigation pane, the inbox folder, let go back to the inbox, and hey, now it's back. Now there's the permanent deletions. So when I delete something to the deleted items folder, and I'm like, okay, I no longer need it as a backup, as it were, in the deleted items folder, I can go ahead, like for this message right here, come over here and click on the X. It warns me that this will permanently delete it because it's not going to move it from this folder to another folder as a backup. Once it's gone from this folder, it's gone for good. So you can go ahead and click yes, and away it goes. Let me go back to the inbox. So when you delete your items, it goes to the deleted items folder, but you can bypass that one of two ways. You can, with it selected, hold down the Shift key and then hit the delete key on the keyboard. It doesn't say that it bypasses the deleted items folder, it just never gets to it because it's going to be permanently deleted if I say yes, and I'll say no. Or every time you exit Outlook, you can have everything within your deleted items folder be cleaned out. Why would you want to do that? Just every time you exit Outlook, permanently delete and clear out the deleted items folder? I don't know, maybe what you're doing is top secret. So to go ahead and set this up, come up here, click on the File tab, go down to Options, then select the Advanced tab, and then right there, Empty Deleted Items when exiting Outlook. You check that, and when you close out of Outlook, everything in the deleted items folder is permanently deleted. So you really want to make sure that that's something that you want to do. Otherwise, I would just leave the deleted items alone because that's my only backup when I delete it from like my inbox and I later realize like, oopsie doodle, didn't mean to do that. Then I can go back to my deleted items folder and pull it up from there. The global address list is only available through the Microsoft Exchange server. So if you're not connected to one, and how do you know if you're connected to one? Well, look down below on the status bar, and if it doesn't say connected, then you don't have this feature. Now, the global address list, when you're connected to an Exchange server, is maintained by the company or organization, and it contains a list of all the users' names or the company or the employees and their email addresses. So, for example, before I go and show you a Microsoft Outlook data profile that's connected to an Exchange server, this is what it looks like when it's not. So when you come up here and click on the new email message and you want to be able to address it to somebody in the organization and you click on the To button, you come over here to the address book. When you click on the drop down arrow, if you're connected to an Exchange server, you'd have it listed here, the global address list. You'd select it and it would automatically pull in everybody's name and email address and their title that belongs to that corporation. So that way, if you want to be able to look up the VP and send him an email address, you can just go ahead and check out the global address list. So let's go ahead and click cancel. So it's not available here in this Outlook data profile. Close out and then close out of Outlook altogether. And I'm going to reopen it back up, double click. And instead of choosing the Outlook profile that's not connected to an Exchange server, I'm going to click on the drop down arrow and select the one that says Exchange that's connected to it so I can show you what it looks like when you actually are connected to an Exchange And your company, of course, has it set up where all the employees, their names and email addresses are in that global address list. So let me go ahead and click OK. And you can see down below on the status bar, the update and trying to connect. Well, that means that it's trying to connect to the Microsoft Exchange server. All the folders are up to date. They've synced up. So anything that you have different on your end here gets updated on the server, and anything that's different on the server, like any new messages that are sitting there, will come into your inbox and obviously update with your latest email messages. So now that we know that we're connected, when I come up here and click on the new email command, and let me move off and click on the To button. When I come over to the address book and click on the drop down arrow, hey, there it is, the global address list. So when I select that and I need to email somebody in the company who I don't know their email address or their title for that matter, you can just peek over here and go, oh, well, it's not here because I don't have it set up, and say Carrie is the VP of operations. Oh, all right. And you can also filter, like if I type in KI for Kurt, it goes through and it finds the only name here that begins with KI and it has it highlighted. And so once you have it highlighted, you can go ahead and click on To, or let's click and drag and hit the delete key, or C for carbon copy, B for blind carbon copy, and then click OK. I'm going to click cancel, and it adds their email or email addresses to the corresponding fields that you chose to put them in, and then just hit send. Well, after you put in the subject and the body of the message here. You can do it that way, or let me close out. If you just want to see what they're about and do a simple lookup, which you could have done that way, but this other way you don't have to open up a new email message. That is, if you're on the Home tab, you can come over here and go to the Find group and click on Address Book. Click on it, and then click on the drop-down arrow and go to the global address list. Now what's cool from here is that once it pulls it up, you can double-click on that person and it opens up their information, or the information that's maintained by the organization. So you got your general name and you're looking at this going, ooh, what dirt can I find out on Carrie? Organization, if they've got it set up, the phone and notes, they're a member of certain groups that you can send emails to, and then their personal email address here. Let's go back to the General tab, and you can add this information here, the basic, to your contacts, which is stored on your computer and not on the server. So that way, if you're not connected to the server or the server's out, you can still look them up again in your contacts folder on your computer. So to add Carrie to my contacts folder, click on Add. Opens it up and allows me, before I click on Save and Close, to type in any additional information like the web page if she has a personal web page address, her business phone if it wasn't available, the business address, any notes. And then when I click on Save and Close, it's now been saved to my contacts folder, which, let me click Cancel and Close out, is down below in the navigation pane, or the folder pane as it's called as well, the Two Dudes. And we'll cover contacts in a later training video in greater detail, but this is just to give you a heads up. Click on the Two Dudes and you're in your contacts folder. Now by default, it may not be in the business card view. It may be in the people view. Look like that, yeah. So when you double click to open up Carrie, we don't get that same window that has the notes that we can type in the notes when we first opened up to be able to save this contact to our contacts folder. So if you want to get out of that, click Cancel and Close Out, and then change it up here on the Home tab in the Current View group and select Business Card. And then when you double click, you get that same window that we just saw when we said go ahead and add this to our contacts and before we click Save. So that way you can come in here, type in some notes, update some of the fields, click Save and Close, and you're good to go. The default font type and size for any new email message you create is going to be Calibri size 11. You want to see? Alrighty, come up here, click on New Email, click in the body of the message, and you'll see up here in the basic text group that it's Calibri size 11. So if I come down here and start typing, it's Calibri size 11. Now if you don't like the size of it, or you don't like the font type, or both, I can show you how you can change the defaults so any new email message you create will have that new type of font or size. But before I show you how to do it, I want to give you a warning, at least when it comes to changing the font type, the default from Calibri to something else. When you change it, you're changing it so you cannot use the, let me click on the Options tab, the theme fonts. There's the theme group and the theme fonts. Now if you don't know anything about themes, then watch my earlier training video on themes, because that's a really detailed training video about themes. and being able to, well, update your fonts in a single click or your colors and effects, because your themes, when you click on it, is made up of these elements here, that you can update everything within the body of the message with those colors, fonts, and effects. So let me go ahead and click off. So if you're okay with not using themes, then you can go ahead and change the default font type to anything else. And even if you do and you still want to use themes, that's okay. It's going to take you a couple of extra clicks to be able to update the entire body of the message to include your fonts as a theme font. So assuming that you watched my training video on themes, let's go ahead and close out of here, and let me show you how you can change the default font type and size for all new email messages by coming up here, clicking on the File tab, going backstage, down to Options, selecting Mail, and then going over and selecting Stationery and Fonts. Click on it, and there you go. We've got 3 that I'm going to be covering here. First of all is for all new email messages. The default font type is a theme font, which is Calibri, size 11. It's showing you a preview of it there. And then when it comes to replying or forwarding messages, you can have a different type of font, but it's the same font, just a different type of color. And then when it comes to composing and reading plain text messages, well, that has nothing to do with theme fonts, because theme font has formats applied to it, and plain text messages strip down all formats. So you can't have any theme fonts in there anyways. So let me show you that in just a minute. But first of all, new email messages, click on Font, and you can see that it's going to be a theme font or the body font, that the default is Calibri. So if you come over here and scroll through and you find another font, you won't be able to use themes for your fonts, which we'll go over just a little bit more later on as a quick reminder if you haven't watched the training video. But let me come up here and delete it and type in Comic Sans. That way I know my font and I don't have to scroll through to find it. And after I type in the first few letters, select it right there. And then let's choose size 12, and you can see a preview of it down below. Looks good. Click OK, and great. That's what all my new email messages, the font type and size, is going to have in it, in the body of the message. And then when it comes to replying or forwarding email messages, well, we can change that. And if you want to change the color, be sure that this is unchecked. Pick a new color when replying or forwarding, which, by the way, if it's checked, it's an auto color, as it says right here, that it will pick a new color when you reply or you forward on an email message. But I'm going to uncheck that because I want to keep it to a color that I like with every single reply or forward that I do. And then come over here, click on Font, and again it's body, so it's a theme font. So if I want to be able to change that, and let's do, how about Arial? Type in Arial, select that, size 11, and then the font color, well, that's kind of bleached to me. I need something with a harsher blue, a deeper blue, let's say. Click on the drop down arrow, and let's do, well, I have it right there, blue, but if I click on more colors and I go to the standard tab, I can choose that one right there, and you can see the updated selected color versus the current color. It's a richer blue. Click OK, and ooh, I like that preview, so I'll click OK. And then finally, for plain text messages where there's no formatting at all, click on Font, and I can come up here and type in Times New Roman, select it, or you can scroll through it to find it, and size 12. I like the preview, so I'll click OK. There it is. Great, we're good to go. Click OK, click OK. Now when I click and create a new email message, and I go to the body of the message, there you go. It's all, as it says up here, Comic Sans size 12. Now, as a quick refresher, when it comes to using themes and you want to be able to change the font within the body of the message to another font, come up here, click on the Options tab, and there's the themes. When I click on the Fonts drop-down arrow and I try to choose one from here, it won't update this because why? Again, when you right-click on this and you look at Comic Sans by clicking on the drop-down arrow, it's not in the theme font section. It doesn't have body next to it. And so if you decide after, for maybe one email message where you're like, okay, this is the one where I want to be able to use theme fonts and to be able to change it, then just select your text and right click and then click on the drop down arrow and then choose the body, because the heading, as we talked about in the themes training video, is for your headings when you apply a heading style to it. In any case, I digress. I hope you watched the video. So let's select body. Then that way when I come up here and I choose either another theme, which is a collection of colors, fonts, and effects, or I just want to choose a different type of font, not update the colors. When I go through here and I hover over any one of these, like Frank Gothic, click on it, it updates it here. Because, well, if you can't tell there, you can, of course, right-click on it, and it says Frank Gothic. So that could be a temporary fix where you're like, okay, I don't want to change the default fonts for all my email messages back to a theme font, the body or Calibri, just this one time. Well, then go ahead and do a temporary fix and change this so it's the Calibri theme font, and then you can change that and update it in a click. Otherwise, if you like theme fonts and you want to be able to change them and use the themes here, then you don't want to change your default font type for your email messages. But again, go ahead and watch my training video on theme fonts. Otherwise, for me, I don't use them, and I go ahead and change my theme font to the default Arial size 10. And for my replies and forwarding email messages, that's a good reminder. Let's close out of here and say no. That when I select an email message here and I click on reply, and I start typing in something, oh, there you go. You can see anywhere when I click within the text that up here in the basic text, it's Arial size 11. Great. In fact, let me go ahead and pop this out. And as you recall in an earlier training video, let's come up here and click on Format Text, and we go to the Format group. Now the HTML and rich text, as we discussed, that when you select it, it doesn't really do anything down below. But when you click on plain text, and remember we said that any plain text messages is going to be in Times New Roman. Well, when I click on it, it says, okay, first of all, you got formatting. That's going to become plain text because plain text does not contain any formatting. Go ahead and click on Continue. And what type of font does it change it to? Well, click anywhere within it, click on the Message tab, and it's Times, well, there you can see N for New Roman 12. And you don't get any options to apply formatting because plain text is just that. It's plain. Over here in the folder pane, anytime you see a folder that has a number next to it, it's an indicator of how many items within that folder that haven't been read yet. And that's good to know because I found myself sometimes, like in the inbox, I'd accidentally delete a message and I didn't realize it, and it would go over into the deleted items folder. When I see a number next to it, I'm like, oh, I got 5 there. Do I have 5 messages or 5 items that I haven't read yet? In any case, before we do that, we're looking at the inbox. And when you select a folder and go over into the main view to find out which, well, in this case, which message hasn't been read, it's the one that's in bold. So that's the formatting that applies to an unread message. So you got the from, subject, received, and the date and time. It's all in bold, the first line of the message. So to go ahead and mark it as being read, you can do it one of a couple of ways. You can either double click, open it up, and actually read the message. It doesn't really know that you read it. Just the fact that you open it up and you close back out of it marks it as being read. It's no longer bold. And then over in the inbox, it removes the number because you actually read that one message that was marked as unread. Now, if you're like, oh, rats, I didn't really read it. I just glanced over it. And later on, I want to be able to look at my inbox and go, oh, yeah, I didn't really read that message. You can actually right-click on it and go back and mark it as being unread. And it's back to being in bold. And then the inbox has one message that you haven't read yet. Well, you actually did when you opened it up, but you can go ahead and mark it back as being unread. So that way you get a flag to say, okay, now when I have time, I'll reread this again in full detail. You can do it that way, or you can right-click on it instead of opening it and say that you read it by selecting Mark as Read, and it removes the bold. The inbox doesn't have a 1 next to it. And in fact, let's go to the Deleted Items folder, and here you can go ahead and right-click on them and mark it as being read. And you can see it goes from 5 items down to 4. And then up at the top, within each main view, you get the all and unread. So this way it worked out really nice because I have a total of 4 sequentially. But if I have an unread message here, then I have to scroll down to find the next unread message. Instead, I can go ahead and filter for all unread messages by selecting unread. Hey, there you go. Great. Let's go ahead and right-click and mark it as being read. It disappears from the filter because it's now been read. And then I go from 4 down to 3. Let me go back to the inbox. And then when I do that and I go back to the deleted items, it resets it so it's no longer searching for only unread messages, but it goes back to viewing all the messages in the deleted items folder. Let's go back to the inbox and you can see it has it here, all, and those that are unread. And then one final note, in a later training video, I'm going to show you how you can actually recall messages So like when you send out a message and you're like, oopsie doodle, didn't mean to send that out, that's embarrassing, that you can actually pull it back. That is, if the other person hasn't read it. And this only works if you're connected to a Microsoft Exchange server. In other words, this feature is only available if you're connected to an Exchange. And you can look down below on the status bar, and if it says connected, you're good to go. Now the point being here is that, this is a little trick, that when you get a message and you double click and you open it up and somebody tries to recall it, they can't because it's been read. But if you open it up and then you right click and you mark it as being unread, they can recall that message. That's kind of tricky because actually you read the message, but when they recall it, they won't know that you actually read the message and then marked it as being unread. So who knows if anybody's going to recall a message. You may not want to read it and then right click on it to mark it as unread. That's a lot of speculation, but nonetheless, I'll cover that more in a later training video. The message preview allows you, well, a few lines to preview the message before you open it up. However, with the reading pane open, you can select it and read it over here. But if you don't have the reading pane open, then the preview here, where I just get a few lines because I don't have enough space between, well, the folder pane and the actual reading pane here. If I got rid of the reading pane, or I turned it off, come up here, click on the View tab, go to the Layout group, click on Reading Pane, and you get the option. We'll cover that in the next training video. Let's just turn it off, and look, see there. Without the reading pane, you actually get the preview, a lot more of it, of the first couple of lines in the email message, where, well, in the reading pane, you get a huge screen over there to read practically everything. So if you want to be able to change the message preview, just come back up here on the View tab, go to the Arrangement group, click on Message Preview, and there's my default 2 lines. Let's go to 3 lines. And you get the option to apply it to all mailboxes or just this folder. I don't want to apply it to all the others. Let me do just this folder. And then for those longer messages, well, I get 3 lines. So I can click on it and see what it looks like with 1, do this folder, and then I can click on it and say off and say this folder. I get no previews, don't know what's in the message until I actually double click to open it up to read it. When you open up Outlook, by default, in every single folder practically, you're going to have what's called the reading pane on the right-hand side. So like in the inbox, I've got all these email messages. Whatever I select, I can get a preview of it over here in the reading pane. In other words, it allows you to read emails without opening them up. And for the most part, you can view messages safely in the reading pane. In other words, potentially malicious scripts or attachments are not activated or opened automatically in the reading pane. Kind of like the junk email folder here. Any messages that are sent to the junk email folder is converted to plain text format, and any links are disabled. So to me, that's a lot safer. So if I really got to open up an email message and it's not enough to preview it over here in the reading pane, then I'll click and drag it to the junk email folder, and then once it's in there, I'll double click to open it up. But do it at your own discretion. I mean, it may not be enough, the junk email folder, to prevent all types of malicious code or viruses, but like I said, for me, it's been working thus far. So the layers are, go ahead and get a preview of it in the reading pane, and that may be enough. And if you feel safe with it, then, if you need to open it up, double click. If not, move it to the junk email folder. But we'll cover the junk email folder in a later training video. Let's keep it simple here. So we've got the message preview, which could also help us, especially if you don't have the reading pane on. But let's come up here and click on the View tab, go to the Arrangement group, and let me turn off message preview, go to off, and only apply to this folder. So no message previews here, like with the additional 2 lines below the first line here, like who it's from in the subject. And then to turn off the reading pane, if that doesn't work for you, come up here on the View tab, go to the Layout group, click on the reading pane drop-down arrow, and we got some other options, including options. Well, let's do this. Let's go ahead and choose bottom, and it flips to the bottom, so you can go ahead and select and get a preview down below. Let's come back up here to the reading pane, and to turn it off, there you go. Now I have no message preview options, including the reading pane, so the only way that I can find out about the contents of the message, well, I can get an idea through the subject, but I'd actually have to double click to open it up. And if I'm not sure about the message, then I could turn on the reading pane or throw it to the junk email. But let's come back up here and click and turn on the reading pane and put it over to the right-hand side here. because, let me come back up here and click on it again. I want to go over the options. Select it, and here we go. Now by default, it shouldn't have the box checked marked items as read when viewed in the reading pane. And I was messing with it, so I checked it earlier on and still checked. So what that means is that, as you recall in an earlier training video, messages that aren't read, they're in bold. Those that have been read or marked as read are no longer in bold. So if you get like a bunch of messages and they haven't been read, if you have this option on, it's going to mark it after 5 seconds if you have that item selected or that email message. So if you read it under 5 and you hurry move to another message, it won't mark it as being read. Of course, you can go ahead and change that, make it 10 seconds, but we'll leave it as 5. And then the next option is you can mark the item as read when selection changes. So if you check that and you just change the selection going from one to the next, it will mark it as being read. And then by default, what's on is the single key reading using the space bar. What that means is that when you go to the first message and you hit the space bar, it'll go to the next message, and if any one of those messages has more text over here in the reading pane than what can be seen, when you hit the space bar, it won't advance to the next email message, but scroll down until you can hit the space bar enough times to be able to view everything that's in the reading pane. And then turn on automatic full screen reading and portrait orientation. Yeah, I'm good with that. So let's go ahead and click OK, and let me right click on some of these as we learned in an earlier training video and mark them as being unread, and then go ahead and select one and wait 5 seconds, and then in a wink of an eye, well, after 5 seconds, boom, it's been read. So if I select this and I'm like 1, 2, 3, oh, okay, whew, good, because that would have been marked as being unread. Of course, you can go back and right click on it, mark it as unread, but don't dilly-dally on it for more than 5 seconds, because then it's gonna, well, there you go, mark it as being unread. And if I go to the top and I hit the space bar, it advances to the next message, to the next one, and you can see I've got a lot of text than what I can view in the reading pane. So when I hit the space bar again, it scrolls down until it gets to the end. Then when I hit the space bar, it says, okay, I can't find anything else here. We're at the bottom of it. So let's go to the next message. There we go. Had to hit the space bar again. Apparently there was an extra blank line and it wanted to pull that up before I advanced to the next message. So an extra space bar, and there we go. Now I'm going to turn the reading pane off for the remainder of these videos because, well, I feel like it's a lot of busyness, and it's a good idea to have it open if you get emails from somebody that you're not sure about, where you can preview it and go, oh, that's just spam. That's horrifying. And then you can go ahead and give it a right click and move it to your block sender list. But I digress. That's in a later training video, or you can go ahead and delete it, put it into deleted items folder, or hold down the shift key and hit the delete, and it will permanently delete it, bypassing the deleted items folder, so that way it doesn't get put into that folder. So if you're perusing through it one day and you double click and open it up and it does have malicious code, oopsie doodle, it may download it. So with those kind of email messages that are spam or maybe malicious, I take no chances. So let me go ahead and say no. Reading pane, and let's go to off. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please see the description below this video.